The morning sun should have felt warm. It should have touched Ashley's bare shoulders like comfort, like freedom, but it didn't. It felt like heat from a furnace that burned without light, without mercy. She stood frozen on the splintered wooden floor of her grandmother's hut, her feet numb from cold and fear, her breath tight like wire wrapped around her ribs. The air tasted like ash and dust and endings. The white dress she wore wasn't really hers. It had belonged to some other girl once, a girl with hope in her eyes and probably a father who didn't sell her for a fucking envelope of cash. The lace on the sleeves itched her skin. Her veil scratched at her temple like punishment. She didn't cry. Not because she wasn't sad, God, she was already hollow inside, but because she'd run out of tears days ago, when her mother had finally stopped fighting. Outside, people were gathering. Nosy neighbors in plastic flip-flops and faded shirts whispered in small clusters. Some looked at Ashley with pity, others with curiosity, but most avoided her gaze altogether. The men kept their arms folded, pretending to be busy with nothing. The women clucked their tongues behind cupped hands. Everyone knew what was happening, and no one would stop it. Ashley was about to marry Henry Blackwell, a man old enough to be her grandfather. A man who didn't even speak her language properly. A white man from some far-off American city where kids had cell phones and swimming pools and Halloween. The kind of man who wore expensive watches that ticked too loud, who kept his mouth shut and his eyes colder than marble. And she, barely past childhood, was going to be his bride. His possession. His fucking property. Just 10 days ago, she was walking barefoot through the market trying to buy pills with coins. Her little brother had fallen sick, some kind of fever that made him shake and scream and bite down on his own tongue. The local clinic turned them away like they were dirt under their boots. No money, no help. That was the rule. Her mother had screamed at the receptionist, tried to trade jewelry, begged them to please, for the love of God, save her son. But even her wedding ring and the old sewing machine hadn't been enough. That was when Henry appeared, like a wolf in a three-piece suit. He'd been staying at a private guest lodge in the mountains, sipping tea and reading newspapers while children starved below the ridge. No one knew why he was here. He wasn't a missionary. He didn't talk about God or peace or redemption. He just showed up, silent, observant, calculating. He saw Ashley in the market that day. Saw her desperation. Saw how little it would cost to buy her. The next day, he came to their door with an offer. A bride price high enough to pay for her brother's medicine, and then some. Food, rent, clothes for a year. Her mother had slammed the door in his face. She'd screamed, "You think you can buy my daughter like a goat?" But by nightfall, the fever had worsened. Her brother began convulsing again. There was blood in his spit. And just like that, Ashley knew it was already over. There was no wedding music. No dancing. Just a brittle old man in a black suit and a girl too small for the dress she wore. Her grandmother tried to smile but it cracked halfway through. The village elder mumbled a few ceremonial words under his breath, avoiding eye contact with Ashley altogether, like he couldn't bear to look at what he was allowing to happen. When he asked Henry if he took Ashley as his wife, the old man said only one word. Yes. Ashley said nothing at all. There was no kiss. Just a nod. A transaction sealed in silence. Afterward, Henry handed her a pair of shoes and gestured toward the waiting car. The driver didn't even open the door for her. He just sat there, engine idling, staring ahead like a robot. As they pulled away, Ashley looked out the window at her house, her old life, and thought of her brother. She didn't cry. She couldn't afford to. The ride to the guest house took almost an hour. The farther they drove, the smaller the world seemed to become. The paved road turned to gravel, the gravel to dirt, and the dirt to nothing. Trees hung low and thick overhead like arms trying to smother the sky. Ashley clenched her hands in her lap, the white dress now wrinkled and heavy like a body bag. When they arrived, Henry said nothing. He led her to a room with a clean bed, too many pillows, and windows that didn't open. He placed a bowl of soup on the nightstand and finally spoke to her directly. "You should eat." His voice was gentle. Too gentle. It caught her off guard, like a knife wrapped in velvet. She didn't touch the soup. Didn't touch the bed either. That night, Henry locked himself in the adjoining room, the soft click of the deadbolt echoing in her ears louder than a gunshot. Ashley sat up all night with her knees to her chest, clutching a photo of her brother. She stared at the locked door and whispered into the dark, "What the hell do you want from me, old man?" But the darkness didn't answer. It never does. The first night in Henry Blackwell's lodge stretched out like a long, cold question mark. Ashley didn't sleep. Her body wouldn't let her. The bed was too soft, too big, too quiet. The walls were thick, the kind that swallowed sound instead of sharing it. She kept staring at the door he'd locked between them. She half expected him to come creeping through at any second, but he didn't. She waited, knees pulled to her chest, fingers clutching the fraying edge of the sheet like a lifeline. Every creak of the floor, every gust of wind outside had her heart hammering like a trapped bird. But all that came was silence, and the low hum of the refrigerator down the hall. It was the kind of quiet that made your skin itch. By morning, the silence hadn't lifted. Henry was already awake, seated at the long oak dining table, sipping coffee and flipping through a thick book in some language Ashley couldn't read. He didn't look up when she entered. Just nodded toward a plate of toast and scrambled eggs on the table. "Eat something," he said without looking. Ashley didn't touch the food. She stood there in the same wrinkled dress, the weight of everything pressing down on her like wet cement. Henry finally glanced up, eyes sharp but unreadable. "There are clothes for you in the bedroom closet," he said calmly. "Wear whatever makes you comfortable." What the fuck does that even mean? Ashley thought. Comfortable? I'm 12 years old, married to a stranger, and locked inside a goddamn mansion in the woods. Nothing's comfortable. Still, she changed. She showered in the too-clean bathroom with silver faucets that hissed like snakes. She put on the dress he left, soft blue cotton, no tags, probably expensive, and sat stiffly at the edge of the couch in the sitting room while he read in silence. That became the pattern. Henry never raised his voice. Never touched her. Never entered her room. Every day, at exactly 4 o'clock, he knocked once, then left a tray of tea and a linen-wrapped cookie on the hallway table like clockwork. Every night, she heard the click of the deadbolt locking the adjoining door between their rooms. He didn't act like a husband. He didn't act like a predator either. That's what scared her most. Ashley had prepared herself for hell, for cold hands and dirty looks, for cruelty hidden behind polished manners. But Henry treated her like glass. Not fragile from pity, but valuable, like she might crack and shatter if handled the wrong way. That carefulness unsettled her more than anything else. What's the game here? She wondered. What the hell is he waiting for? On the third day, she heard music echoing faintly from one of the upper rooms, a soft, scratchy jazz record that made the hall feel like a ghost movie. She crept toward the sound and peeked through a cracked door. Henry was there, sitting alone in a deep brown armchair, eyes locked on the wall-length mirror across from him. He wasn't brushing his hair or adjusting his tie. He wasn't even blinking. Just staring. His mouth moved slightly, like he was whispering something. But to who? Ashley couldn't hear. A chill crawled down her spine, and she backed away before he saw her. That night, she tried asking him directly. "Why'd you marry me?" Henry paused, then answered without turning his head. "Because it was the only way to keep you safe." What the hell does that even mean? The next morning, he invited her for a walk through the forest trail behind the house. She hesitated, half expecting it to be a trap, but followed. He handed her a notebook. "You should write," he said. "Even if it's just your thoughts." She squinted at him. "Why?" "Because stories make sense of things," he said. Then, quieter, "And I think you'll need that soon." What the fuck did that mean? Ashley wanted to scream. Instead, she shoved the notebook in her coat pocket and walked faster. She couldn't figure this man out. Was he a monster pretending to be decent, or a savior too damaged to explain himself? Later that night, the storm rolled in, hard. Thunder shook the windows. The power flickered. Ashley sat in her room, knees to her chest, candlelight dancing on the walls. She tried to read the notebook he gave her, but the pages were blank. The emptiness stared back like a dare. Around midnight, something banged downstairs. Loud. Deliberate. She jumped to her feet. Another crash. A chair? A shelf? She crept down the hall, heart pounding. In the main room, Henry was there. Not hurt. Not scared. Just, breathing heavily. A shattered glass lay at his feet. He looked like hell. His face was pale. Sweat clung to his collar. Go back to bed, he muttered, not looking at her. She stood frozen in the doorway. Are you sick? He didn't answer. He just looked at her like she wasn't a girl anymore, but something else. Something bigger. Something dangerous. The hallway always gave Ashley the creeps. It stretched too long, too quiet, like the house was holding its breath. At the far end was the door, the one with a heavy brass handle that never turned. She tried it more than once, of course. Curiosity was a reflex when your whole life suddenly got snatched away and replaced with mystery. But it was always locked, and Henry's only explanation was cryptic as hell. Some doors aren't ready to open yet, he'd said with that weird half-smile. Bullshit. Ashley didn't trust smiles like that. Not from old white men with too much money and too many rooms. So when Henry left one night, said something vague about needing to check on a delivery in town, and disappeared into the rain without even taking his coat, Ashley moved. She waited 10 minutes, then crept downstairs in her socks, flashlight in hand. The door at the end of the hall loomed like it was watching her. Her palms were sweating, but her mind was set. She was done playing the passive little girl in someone else's story. If he was hiding something, she'd find it. The first pin she slid into the keyhole snapped clean in half. The second held. She'd learned to pick locks from her cousin Deshaun back home, who used to break into vending machines for candy. He'd told her, it's just about feeling the tension. Like every lie's got a pressure point. Damn if he wasn't right. Click. The door creaked open slowly. The smell hit her first, old paper, cedar, something deeper, like grief. Or guilt. Inside was a room that didn't belong in this house or any house. It was a goddamn shrine. Photos lined the walls, dozens, maybe hundreds, of kids. Girls. Different faces, different countries, different ages. Some smiling. Some not. Beneath each frame was a handwritten date. Some had big red XS slashed across them. Others were just blank. Ashley's chest tightened. In the far corner sat a wooden trunk, scuffed and worn like it had been dragged across continents. Inside were notebooks, stacked and sealed with brittle string. Letters, too. Handwritten. Different names, different styles. She pulled one at random. Dear Marisol, you're probably 17 now. I still think about your laughter. I hope you kept the violin. I'm sorry I had to leave so soon. She dropped it like it burned. Her fingers shook. She grabbed another. To Chica, the stars were always brightest when you sang. I hope you found your mother. I hope you still sing. And then she saw it. A fresh envelope. Still warm from breath. Her name on it. To Ashley. You don't know yet, but you will. I just hope I live long enough to see you smile for real. Her stomach dropped. The kind of drop you don't recover from. Why the fuck was there a letter for her in a locked room she'd never seen before? Why did it read like a goodbye? A sound behind her made her spin. Henry was in a doorway, soaked from the rain. He looked older than usual. Smaller somehow. The tiredness in his eyes wasn't just from age, it was history. Ashley stepped back like she'd touched a live wire. What the hell is this? She snapped. He sighed and leaned against the doorframe like the truth was heavier than his bones. I suppose it's time you knew. Knew what? That you collect girls like fucking souvenirs. I didn't marry you for me, Henry said quietly. I married you for you. Silence. Not the stunned kind. The charged kind, like thunder waiting to hit ground. Ashley didn't speak. Couldn't. Henry stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. Not to trap her. To give her space. He walked over to one of the pictures, an image of a girl in a yellow dress beneath a blossom tree, laughing like the world hadn't broken her yet. Her name was Amira, he said. From Morocco. She had a stutter. But when she read poetry, it was like God himself was speaking through her. He paused. The smile on his face crumbled. She died at 14. Malaria. Her village had no clean water. Ashley didn't want to feel bad for him, but her stomach twisted anyway. He pointed to another photo. Leon. Southern China. Abandoned at birth. I paid for her surgeries. She wanted to be a nurse. She didn't make it either. Are these all girls you married? Ashley asked, her voice shaking but hard. No, he said firmly. They were girls I found. Girls in danger. Being sold. Forgotten. Thrown away. I didn't marry them. You're the first. That hit like a slap. Then why me? She demanded. Henry sat down in a worn leather chair, shoulders sinking. Because you were gonna be married off anyway. You just didn't know it yet. Ashley felt the world tilt. Her knees wobbled. You're lying. I wish I were, Henry said, voice cracking for the first time. There was a Russian businessman. Buying girls in that village. Your family's debt made you a target. He was coming. I heard it. I got there first. Ashley stumbled back, eyes darting to the wall of faces. They weren't trophies. They were gravestones. Ashley didn't sleep that night. She sat in the middle of the locked room, surrounded by the ghost stories of girls who never got to finish theirs. The letter with her name still trembled in her hand, the ink barely dry, like Henry had written it just hours earlier. Maybe minutes. Her mind wouldn't stop spinning. Every damn thing in her life had twisted itself into a knot, one she didn't know how to untie. She'd come into this house expecting chains. Instead, she found mysteries. Instead of a monster, she found a man hiding behind too much grief and too many secrets. What the hell was she supposed to feel now? By the time dawn crept through the windows, she was still in that chair, awake, motionless, hollow. She knocked on Henry's door at breakfast. No answer. She knocked again, harder. Still nothing. Something inside her chest dropped. She tried the handle. Locked. She banged once more, then shoved her weight into the door with everything she had. The old frame cracked on the third hit, and the door flew open with a loud snap. Henry was there. Lying on his side, facing the window, like he'd just dozed off during a lazy Sunday. Only he wasn't sleeping. His lips were pale. His skin looked thin, like paper. His chest wasn't rising. The teacup on his nightstand was still warm. Half full. And just like that, the only person who ever gave a damn whether she lived or died was gone. Ashley stood frozen. Her throat tightened like a fist. She didn't cry. Not at first. The grief didn't come out in tears, it came out in silence, thick and suffocating. Her knees gave way. She dropped beside the bed, grabbed his cold hand, and whispered, "You asshole. You didn't even say goodbye." The doctor came hours later. Congestive heart failure. He knew it was coming, apparently. Which meant everything, the letters, the timing, even the marriage, had been his last fucking mission. One more rescue before the lights went out. She found another envelope in his bedside drawer, sealed with her name. Ashley, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But that's okay. I've lived my life. Now it's time for you to live yours. You'll find documents in the study. Your name is now on everything I own. Land. Savings. Property. But the most important thing I leave you isn't money. It's freedom. Don't waste it. This time, she did cry. Not because she was scared. But because someone had actually seen her. Chosen her. And now he was dead. Word of Henry Blackwell's death hit the village like a goddamn hurricane. First came the staff, confused whispers and side eyes. Then came the neighbors. Then came the questions. Nobody said it out loud, but you could feel the tension rise like smoke. The idea that this old white man had left everything to a 12-year-old black girl from a broke family. That shit wasn't going to sit quiet. By the third day, Miss Barrow, Henry's lawyer, rolled up in a black car with tinted windows and a steel folder clutched to her chest like it held nuclear codes. She wore red lipstick and heels that didn't make a sound on the hardwood floors. Her voice was sharp as glass. "Ashley Blackwell," she said, looking down at the girl in oversized slippers and a robe. "You're officially the sole beneficiary of Mr. Henry Blackwell's estate. That includes real estate assets, bank holdings, trust distributions, and intellectual property rights. It's all yours." Ashley blinked. "I don't know what the hell half those words mean." Miss Barrow gave the tiniest smile. "You'll learn." Outside, it didn't take long for the vultures to circle. Rumors spread fast. She bewitched him. She poisoned him. She must have done something behind closed doors. She tricked him into marriage. She's just a kid. This is a damn scam. Old women made the sign of the cross when she walked by. Shopkeepers raised their prices when her driver came to town. One preacher even shouted during his Sunday sermon that the devil walks in silk now. Even her own mother fainted in the yard when the lawyer handed her a copy of the will. Ashley didn't respond to any of it. She didn't yell. Didn't hide. Didn't cry. She just sat in Henry's library, wearing his old sweater, drinking his tea, and staring at the fireplace while the world outside tore her name apart. Because she remembered what Henry once said. Stories make sense of things. And this? This was her story now. The fire crackled in Henry's old fireplace, spitting tiny embers that danced like angry spirits. Ashley sat in his chair now, wrapped in a sweater that still smelled like him, cedarwood, old books, and faint cologne. The will sat open in her lap like a bomb that had already gone off. 12 years old. And now she owned everything. The house. The land. The cars. The bank accounts. Even the fucking paintings on the walls. The girl who used to sell herbs barefoot in the market now had a lawyer on speed dial and a legal team that referred to her as ma'am. It was surreal. It was terrifying. And it was pissing people off. They didn't say it to her face, not yet, but the village was buzzing like a kicked hornet's nest. One neighbor called her a puppet. Another muttered "devil child" under her breath when Ashley passed by the bakery. The whispers followed her everywhere, in the grocery aisles, at the clinic, even in church. Some folks said Henry had been conned. Others swore she'd put something in his tea. One man even threw a rock at her gate and shouted, "You think you're better than us now, huh? You think this is your town?" Ashley didn't flinch. Didn't answer. Didn't open the gate. She just stood behind the iron bars and stared at him until he looked away. Because deep down, they weren't angry at her. They were angry at the idea of her. A black girl. Poor. Young. Suddenly holding power they couldn't touch. That scared the shit out of them. And she was done shrinking for their comfort. On the third day after the funeral, Miss Barrow came back. She wore jeans this time. No red lipstick. No briefcase. Just a small folder and a soft look. "There's more than enough here to cover your needs until college," she said gently. "And beyond. You don't have to decide anything right now. But we will need to appoint a legal guardian to oversee the estate." Ashley didn't look up. "Do I have to leave?" "No," Miss Barrow said, surprised. "This house is yours. Henry made that very clear." Ashley let that settle. The truth hit like a freight train. She had her own bed. Her own roof. Her own damn name on the title deed. And for the first time in her life, nobody could send her away. Nobody could sell her. Nobody could touch her. And just like that, something deep in her spine straightened. That night, she stayed up until sunrise combing through Henry's ledgers, rows and rows of numbers, donations, receipts, medical payments, school tuition. His record stretched across the globe. He hadn't just given away his money. He'd given away his life. And now it was her turn. Ashley made her first move the very next day. She called Miss Barrow and told her to transfer a large portion of Henry's remaining funds to the village clinic. She wanted it fully repaired. New equipment. Real doctors. Not those half-trained assholes who turned her brother away when he was dying. Then she made a list. The schoolyard, where she used to sell dried herbs and watch other kids go to class. She bought the entire block and started construction on a real school. One with windows. Desks. A playground. Teachers who gave a damn. She funded a meal program. She hired women from the village as cooks, drivers, caretakers. She made jobs. But that wasn't all. She drafted a new policy and paid a lawyer to make it official. Girls under 14 were no longer allowed to be married without full legal documentation and approval from the newly established Child Safety Registry, managed by her estate. Anyone caught trying to bypass it? Reported. Publicly. No more backdoor deals. No more whispered auctions of daughters over dinner. And oh, did the town react. Some folks cheered. Others panicked. One church elder called her an arrogant little tyrant in a princess dress. Another called her Satan in sneakers. But they weren't ready for what came next. Because Ashley didn't back down. She doubled down. She started showing up to town meetings. Quiet, calm, dangerous in her silence. She didn't shout. She didn't argue. She just sat there and took notes. And when people asked why she was there, she looked them dead in the eye and said, "Because this is my town now, too." One by one, people started noticing. The girls who used to walk with their heads down now smiled in public. The kids who used to steal bread now had full plates. Even the old clinic nurse who once ignored her mother's pleas pulled Ashley aside and whispered, "I was wrong. I'm sorry." Ashley didn't respond. She just nodded. She wasn't here for apologies. She was here to fix what no one else had the guts to touch. And when a reporter from the capital came knocking, wanting to interview the mysterious orphan heiress who inherited a millionaire's fortune, Ashley answered the door herself. No makeup. No prep. Just her. And when the journalist asked, "What do you say to people who think you're too young to run an estate?" Ashley smiled, cold and slow. They thought I was too young to survive, too. But here we are. Weeks passed. The house was no longer quiet, but it wasn't chaotic either. It was humming, alive in a new way. Staff moved with purpose, the halls smelled like fresh paint and clean sheets, and the rooms once locked by grief were now full of laughter. Children played in a garden. Books lined the walls. Ashley had turned Henry's lodge into something closer to a sanctuary. But peace? That still hadn't come. Not completely. She still slept with the light on. Still jumped at slamming doors. Still woke up sometimes clutching her brother's photo like a shield. She didn't talk about it. She just worked. That was easier. One stormy evening, thunder rolling like war outside, Ashley was pulling down old books from Henry's private shelf. She needed a distraction, something to keep her from spiraling. Half the titles were in French or Latin, thick with dust and sadness. She was about to shove them all back when something slipped between the pages of a leather-bound book. A plain white envelope. No name. No stamp. Just a faint smear of fingerprints and the unmistakable weight of something that wasn't meant to be found. Ashley stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside was a folded document, crisp, typed, and organized with brutal precision. At the top. "If they come for you, don't be afraid." Her fingers shook as she read on. It wasn't a letter. It was a fucking list. Names. Dates. Locations. Job titles. Government affiliations. Dozens of men. Some local, some foreign. Some with titles like ambassador and deputy minister. Others listed as private donor, international liaison, foreign consultant. Next to many of the names were cold, clean notes. Tied to child bride pipeline, Uganda-Kenya border. Suspected in 2014 trafficking case. Protected by internal immunity. Paid $200,000 for undocumented marriage to 11-year-old. Status, unknown. One line hit harder than the rest. The ones who silence girls don't hide in the dark. They wear suits. They write laws. They call it order. Ashley felt like the walls were tilting. Her mouth was dry. Her vision blurred. She sat down hard on the floor, the envelope clutched in one hand, her heart pounding so fast it felt like it might explode. Henry hadn't just been saving girls. He'd been documenting the monsters. This wasn't some coincidence. This wasn't an old man with a savior complex trying to make peace before death. This was a war. A quiet one. A war fought with paperwork, bribes, and death certificates no one questioned. Ashley read to the bottom of the list. At the very end, in shaky handwriting. Use your voice, Ashley. Burn the dark. They can't kill light when it knows who it is. Something inside her snapped. Not in a broken way. In a righteous way. Like steel being forged. She spent the entire night scanning the documents, uploading them to a secure drive, then backing them up again. Twice. She didn't sleep. Didn't eat. By morning, she knew exactly what she had to do. She called Miss Barrow. We need to talk. I found something. By noon, Barrow was in the study, flipping through the pages with wide eyes and a clenched jaw. Jesus Christ, she muttered. Do you know what this is? Ashley nodded. It's the reason he married me. Miss Barrow looked up, stunned. What do you mean? It wasn't just to protect me, Ashley said, voice steady. It was so I'd inherit this. So they couldn't erase it when he died. Barrow exhaled slowly. You're sitting on a landmine. If even half of this is true. It's all true, Ashley said. I can feel it. Barrow sat back, eyes darting over the list again. We'll need lawyers. Real ones. Investigators. Whistleblower protection. Hell, maybe even a security team. Ashley didn't blink. Get it done. That night, she stood alone in a garden, rain falling steady on her shoulders. The lights from the lodge glowed behind her like fireflies. She whispered to the wind, to Henry, to whoever was still listening out there. They think they can bury girls like me. They're gonna learn we grow roots. The rain hadn't stopped in days. It tapped on the windows like a warning, like the sky itself was pacing. Ashley didn't flinch. She hadn't flinched in a while. In the 2 weeks since finding the list, she'd barely left Henry's study. The once quiet room now looked like a war room, maps, timelines, sticky notes, photos, folders, pins. She and Miss Barrow worked side by side, fueled by black coffee, late-night takeout, and fury. They'd catalogued every name. Cross-referenced every connection. Backed up the documents in 5 different locations. Sent copies to 3 trusted journalists under aliases. Ashley knew what she was doing wasn't safe. But it was right. And she was tired of surviving quietly. The final straw came when one of the names from Henry's list, a sitting regional councilman, showed up at the estate, smiling like a preacher and asking if Ashley would reconsider how she handled the files. His voice was polite. His eyes weren't. Ashley stared him down through the iron gate. You should go before I call the press. He smiled, but it cracked. You think you're a threat, little girl? Ashley didn't move. No. I'm a mirror. You're scared of what I show. He left. Ashley didn't sleep that night. She watched the gate until sunrise, heart pounding like a war drum. By morning, she knew it was time. She opened her laptop. She uploaded everything. The scanned documents. The names. The cover-up notes. Henry's letters. Her story. Then she wrote one line at the top of the post. When the world tells a girl to stay quiet, burn the goddamn silence instead. She hit publish. And then the world exploded. Within hours, her story spread like wildfire. 12-year-old heiress exposes global child bride network. Hidden whistleblower files reveal names of politicians, diplomats. Girl once forced into marriage now leading fight against international exploitation. By the next day, her face was on TV. Every major news outlet called. Some respectful. Some nosy as hell. One reporter had the nerve to ask if she was sure she understood what she was doing. Ashley leaned forward and answered live on camera. Sir, I've been forced into marriage, buried a man who saved me, rebuilt a village, and exposed a trafficking ring. You really think I don't know what the hell I'm doing? The internet lost its mind. People either loved her, or wanted her gone. Supporters called her a hero. A revolutionary. A phoenix. Haters called her a liar. A puppet. A threat. She got death threats in 3 languages. One email simply read, "Careful. Lights go out." Ashley printed it and pinned it to the wall under the words, "Bring a flashlight." But it wasn't just talk. Her security cameras caught a black SUV parked across the road for 2 nights straight. No plates. No lights. Barrow filed a formal complaint. The car disappeared. But it came back 2 days later. That night, Ashley didn't sleep. She sat in the hallway with a baseball bat and Henry's old pistol beside her. Just in case. She wasn't scared anymore. She was ready. Then came the rally. What started as a few dozen girls gathering at the school she built turned into something bigger, hundreds of them, wearing red ribbons and carrying candles. Survivors. Mothers. Teachers. Even former skeptics. Ashley stood on the steps and watched them fill the field. She took the mic without shaking. "They told me I was too young. Too poor. Too black. Too female to matter. They told me to sit down, shut up, smile. And when they couldn't control me, they tried to erase me." She held up a copy of the list. "Well, guess what? I'm still here. And now I've got names." The crowd erupted. That night, #AshleyBurnTheDark trended worldwide. But the war was just beginning. 2 more girls from nearby towns came forward with stories, almost identical. Forced marriages, threats, shady, foreign donors. One girl had scars. Another had been hidden in a church basement for months before escaping. Ashley brought them in. Gave them beds. Safety. Lawyers. She wasn't building a home anymore. She was building a movement. Barrow helped her launch the Langston Report, a living document updated weekly, exposing networks of abuse, shady officials, and new survivor testimonies. Suddenly, politicians were panicking. Meetings were being cancelled. One councilman resigned mid-session. 2 others were indicted. Ashley kept going. When a male anchor tried to cut her off during a live debate, she looked him dead in the eye and said, "I waited my whole life to be heard. I'm not shutting up because you're uncomfortable." The audience lost it. By 16, she'd stood in front of the United Nations and delivered a speech that made half the room cry and the other half clench their jaws. "You built a world where girls like me are currency. I'm building one where we're fire." And in the back row, someone whispered, "Holy shit, she means it." The world thought Ashley Blackwell had won. She'd taken on traffickers, toppled corrupt politicians, shut down a child marriage network, and still made it home in time to help a 9-year-old survivor learn how to braid her own hair. The headlines painted her as unstoppable. Brave. Untouchable. But Ashley knew better. Because power doesn't die easy. It mutates. It hides. And sometimes, it waits. The signs started small. 2 of her trail cameras went dark. Then another. The wiring wasn't chewed by rats or killed by rain, someone had sliced them clean. Barrow tightened security. Hired new guards. Switched encryption systems. But Ashley could feel it in her gut. Something was coming. Then, one afternoon, a white sedan pulled up just past the tree line, sat idling for 20 minutes, then drove off. No plates. No visible driver. No one admitted to seeing it. Ashley watched it through binoculars from the study window. That night, her dog, a border collie named Max, whimpered at the barn door. Ashley found him bleeding, glass shards embedded in his paw. Not broken bottles. Embedded. Arranged. Hidden like a goddamn trap. "This wasn't an accident," Barrow said grimly as she bandaged Max's paw. "They're testing you." Ashley didn't reply. She just stroked Max's fur and stared out the window, her jaw clenched so tight it hurt. 2 nights later, the encrypted hard drive arrived. No postage. No sender. Just a manila envelope with one word scribbled across it in Sharpie. Ashley. Barrow scanned it for bugs. For tracking devices. Nothing. But even the encryption was higher level, military grade. It took their best tech team 72 hours to break it. What they found inside wasn't just a hard drive. It was a blueprint. 4 folders. 4 phases. 1 program. OPRM. Operational. Rural. Population. Management. Ashley stared at the screen, heart pounding. Each folder had a title. Phase 1, Infiltration. Phase 2, Conditioning. Phase 3, Pressure. Phase 4, Correction. She clicked into Phase 1. It detailed exactly how communities like hers were targeted, villages suffering from poverty, weak legal systems, cultural isolation. Charts and maps pinpointed locations across the globe. There were slides titled, Emotional Yield versus Compliance Ratio, Behavioral Leverage by Age Bracket, and Psychological Soft Zones. Ashley felt like she was going to be sick. She wasn't reading theories. She was reading doctrine. This wasn't just Henry's mission. This was federal. This was systemic. Phase 2 outlined re-education protocols. Sponsored clergy. Fake NGOs. Outreach programs that weren't really about outreach, they were about testing how far people would bend before they broke. There were images of public correction rallies. Diagrams of crowd response thresholds. Ashley scrolled faster, her hands shaking. Phase 3 was worse. It showed how resistance was neutralized, financial pressure, reputational ruin, staged community outrage, and, if needed, silent disappearances. There were color-coded maps with zones labeled. P1, probationary. P2, persuasion. P3, physical relocation encouraged. And then Phase 4. It was locked with a secondary encryption. Only one file was visible. Target classification, primary resistance node, A. Blackwell. Ashley's blood ran cold. Her name. Her full name. Next to it. Strategic influence, high risk. Containment status, incomplete. Phase 4 protocol pending authorization. That's when it hit her. Everything she'd done, every post, every speech, every survivor she'd protected, was being tracked. They weren't just watching her. They were waiting. Waiting to see if she'd cross the threshold. Waiting to decide if she was worth eliminating. Barrow stood behind her, pale and stiff. This isn't just a cleanup op, she said. This is a fucking test program. They're running simulations on human lives. Ashley leaned back in the chair, her face blank. I'm not the bug in their system, she said quietly. I'm the firewall. She got up, walked to the center of the room, and looked at the wall of names she'd built, survivors, allies, whistleblowers. Every one of them had been marked by this machine in some way. And every one of them had refused to stay silent. Ashley turned to Barrow. If there's a Phase 4 contingency, there's a Phase 5. Ashley. We need to find it. Before it finds us. It didn't take long to confirm what Ashley feared. Henry hadn't been the architect. He'd been the field test. The files on the drive were labeled meticulously. Too meticulously. Like someone expected them to be found, eventually. Like someone wanted Ashley to know she wasn't the only one being watched. On the third day of digging through Phase 4 protocols, Barrow hit something big. A folder hidden behind a decoy labeled Legal Tax Filings. Inside. Ground Unit, Phase 4, Team 7 reports. And a photo. 10 people. All wearing identical black vests. Matching patches. Clipboard holsters. Walkie-talkies. Tactical belts. Dead center in the image, Karen Blakewell. A local, community liaison, who once served Henry tea at a church event and made a snide comment about foreigners buying their way into our values. The same Karen who tried to block Ashley's first school proposal by filing a noise complaint during construction. The same Karen who disappeared from the village a week after Henry died. Above the photo, a label burned into the page. Phase 4 Ground Team, Unit 7. Which meant there were at least 6 more. Barrow stared at the screen in stunned silence. Ashley just muttered. Fuck. Every ground team had a primary target. A community. A designed scapegoat. And she hadn't even known she was Unit 7's final boss. That night, Ashley couldn't sleep. The wind outside hissed like a warning, and the lights flickered once around 3 a.m., just enough to make her heart drop. She checked every window. Every door. Then went to the study and clicked open the surveillance feed from the estate's thermal cameras. One figure. Then two. Then three. No lights. No vehicle. No motion near the gate. They weren't coming through the front. They were already inside the fence. Ashley grabbed her phone and texted Barrow. "They're here." Then she pressed the silent alarm under the desk. Outside, the night held its breath. The intruders moved like they'd done this before. Trained, quiet, coordinated. Two circled wide toward the east barn. One approached the front path, clipboard in hand like some sick parody of a delivery driver. Ashley didn't move. Didn't panic. She triggered the first floodlight manually. Boom, an explosion of white light flooded the garden, followed by high-pitched sirens wired through the trees. The sound bounced off every surface. Disorienting. Violent. Tactical. Two of them hit the ground immediately. One ran toward the barn, but didn't get far. Max, paw still bandaged, charged him like a bullet, barking with a sound Ashley had never heard from him before. The man tripped, crashing into the feed bins. Ashley stepped onto the porch with the same calm Henry used to have. The one that said, "I'm not afraid of you. I've already lived through worse." "Good evening, gentlemen," she called. "Y'all lost or just stupid?" The one in front straightened, dusted off his vest, and said, "We're here for seizure protocol under Phase 4. Subject, Blackwell. You've been designated a non-compliant entity." Ashley raised an eyebrow. "You read that off a script or pull it out of your ass?" He didn't answer. Just held up a printed document, some kind of fake-ass warrant that had half the county seal photoshopped into the corner and the words, "Emergency Directive B9, scrawled in Sharpie. Ashley took one step down the porch. "This is private property. You're armed. You're uninvited. That's not a protocol, that's a home invasion." The clipboard guy twitched, clearly not used to resistance. The one near the barn raised a weapon, non-lethal, maybe, but still a threat. Ashley hit the second switch. Flashbangs went off, loud, concussive bursts of light and pressure from hidden deck launchers. Not deadly, but enough to knock their balance into next week. The team stumbled, disoriented. Then came the cruiser lights. Sheriff Langston. Real law. Real badge. Real gun. He stepped out slow, leveled his pistol with professional calm, and said, "Drop the goddamn clipboards." One of the intruders actually tried to talk. "We're acting under a federally protected program, Civilian Reformation and Order Protocol." Langston walked straight up, ripped the badge off the guy's vest and laughed. "This says, Tier 2 Enforcement, Compliance Specialist. What are you, a dollar store FBI?" Ashley walked forward. The porch light made her look like something biblical. "You thought I was just a girl," she said, voice sharp as broken glass. "But I'm the goddamn firewall." They cuffed 4 of them. 2 more were dragged out from the trees by Langston's deputies. 7 total. All trained. All armed. All stupid enough to think they could ghost their way through the gates of the girl who burned down Silence for breakfast. As one of them was loaded into the back of a cruiser, he looked at Ashley and smiled, not fearfully, but like he knew something she didn't. "Phase 4 isn't about you," he said. "You're not the enemy. You're the prototype." Then he winked. Ashley didn't speak. She didn't need to. Because her silence now. It was louder than anything they'd ever expected. The man's words echoed in Ashley's mind for days. "You're not the enemy. You're the prototype." She didn't sleep much after that. Because what kind of system needs a prototype? Only one planning mass production. The raid had confirmed everything. Phase 4 wasn't theory. It was active. Global. And far from over. Unit 7 was just a test run. And if Henry hadn't gotten to her first, she might have been reduced to a footnote in a fake compliance report. Ashley doubled security. Sent the remaining intruders to a high-level federal holding center under Langston's supervision. Her lawyers prepped charges so tight the devil himself couldn't slip through. But her gut kept twisting. If she was the prototype, then where was Phase 5? She found out exactly 1 week later. The final folder on the encrypted drive, locked behind triple encryption and a biometric seal Henry had hidden inside an old compass, cracked open at 2:17 a.m. with a single click. And there it was. Phase 5, Integrated Normalization. It was a blueprint for erasure. The last step in the plan. When resistance reached a level too strong to silence directly, the system would absorb it. Rebrand it. Repackage it. Use faces like Ashley's as mascots. Put them on stages. Hand them awards. Pretend they'd won while redirecting the real operation underground, new name, new rules, same abuse. They wouldn't kill the revolution. They'd co-opt it. Make it marketable. Safe. Fake. It was genius. And evil as hell. The documents were chilling. Offers for NGO partnerships. TV deals. Carefully selected legislation that would create the illusion of victory without real teeth. Controlled opposition disguised as progress. Ashley sat back in the chair, disgusted. They didn't want to beat her. They wanted to wear her face like a mask. But not today. She called a press conference. Not at the UN. Not in a studio. Right in front of the village school she built, same dirt, same dust, same girls now laughing on swings she once dreamed of. A crowd of thousands showed up. Barrow stood behind her. Sheriff Langston beside her. Survivors in the front row. Ashley stepped up to the mic with no notes. Just rage. And love. They wanted me to believe the fight was over, she began. They wanted you to believe we'd won. But that was never the end game. They didn't want to defeat us. They wanted to rebrand us. Turn our pain into something they could sell back to the world in clean packages. They called me a prototype. But let me be clear, this face, this voice, this fire you see. It's real. And it's not for sale. The crowd roared. They wrote a program. We rewrote the rules. They built a machine. We broke it open. They hid in the dark. So now. She held up the Phase 5 documents. We light it the fuck up. The Langston report became more than a website. It became a global database, open source, updated daily, fed by survivors and whistleblowers alike. Phase 5. Public. Named. Burned. Ashley's testimony before an international tribunal led to 29 convictions in the first year alone, 3 of them senior officials from programs supposedly dedicated to youth empowerment. But Ashley didn't stop there. She launched the Freelight Initiative, building schools, legal defense teams, and trauma recovery centers in over 14 countries. Every single one under full survivor leadership. By age 17, she'd personally helped amend child protection laws in 5 nations. By 18, she was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. When a journalist asked her how she felt about it, she just shrugged. I didn't do this for applause. I did it so no girl would have to trade her childhood for survival ever again. But Ashley's most powerful moment came quietly. No cameras. No speeches. Just a visit to a grave. She stood under the shade of the old blossom tree Henry once told her about. A framed photo in her hand, a mirror, smiling in yellow. Ashley placed it beside Henry's stone. She knelt. You weren't my husband. You weren't even my father. She paused, her voice breaking a little, just once. But you were the spark. Then she stood. Looked toward the horizon. Behind her, a group of girls were walking toward the lodge, laughing, carrying books, braiding each other's hair, wearing futures that were theirs. Ashley didn't need to look back to know what came next. She was done surviving. Now, she was building a world where light wins. Every single time.